cloud, and then yes, so I think there is so much action in the air, and with all planets direct moving until officially until the 29th of March, all the planets are going direct. So it feels like, boom, things are coming from the left, from the right. And it's good. I mean, it is like wind in our sails. And I've just visited your LinkedIn profile, and I see there's a lot of stuff going on your side also.
I know,
Doing great.
like I told you before that I, as a child, wasn't able to express a lot. And now it's like the universe is saying it's your time.
Right. Yeah. It's as
Yeah,
if
and
a cork is popped and boom, everything flows now.
and so it's I love that, and I love speaking with like-minded people because you're really raising the frequency between each other, but then for just a collective conscious
Yes.
level, and
Yeah.
whoever receives the message in their way, and if it helps them, then our job is done, right?
I so agree, because that is taking all the fear and the, with all these like wars going on and this going on and that going on. But if you just counteract it with feeding the field with positive and constructive information, it turns it around. And I mean, we all don't experience any like hardship in our lives. I think that the soul chooses something like that to begin with.
I
And
agree.
it's a question of vibration. Same with relationships, depending on how we vibrate, we really attract the people and the circumstances in our lives.
I agree. And this is I think this is not new knowledge, but I think it is current knowledge that we have to use in order to make transitions micro and macro.
Yes, oh
Um,
yes, that's astrology.
right? That's it, right?
That's
And you
yes.
have to do those things, and you have to be aware of build an awareness around your emotion, your vibration.
Mm,
Who are you associating with? Who are you inviting to your table
mhm.
to your table each day? Because some people well, let's face it, we don't vibe with everyone, right? We
Exactly.
vibe
And
with
and the good thing is we don't pull them in our sphere as easily anymore. I think it's really more focused on vibrations. That's why some people fade out of our lives, because we are just not a match anymore.
I
And
agree.
it's natural sorting, I would call it.
Yes. Yeah, I love that you said that. Very beautifully said. It's just kind of a natural way, right?
Yeah,
And it's not good or bad, it's just the way.
right, exactly. And that's, the relationships that are long lasting are they're growing, because they all come to these like interject or intersections or Y junctions and or forks, where it's really up to the couple, to the people involved, to decide, okay, I'm ready to evolve. Are you? And if the other person is not, then obviously there has to be a reshuffling and maybe sorting out, moving on without the other person. And I mean, the more you have commonalities, then the more you make an effort to stay together, which kind
I
of like brings
agree.
us to this whole topic what we picked for today, parenting and children, right?
And astrology, what a combination.
Yes, exactly. It's all about vibration, really. And yeah, last month we looked at the partnerships, which is the foundation of creating offspring, of course. And yes, it's so important to understand the other, whether it's the partner or even the child. And for that, astrology can be super helpful for people, in terms of also the charts that we mentioned, like this synastry. Maybe you remember synastry.
I remember that word, yes.
Yeah, when we take two charts and we compare them, and then we have the composite. And the composite is like um it's a fusion of the two charts. So you're looking at one chart, and that can be a couple, the parents,
Yeah,
it can be mother-child, and you look at what is our deal, what's our relationship. So it's a relationship chart, and it can be even with more. And I just, for fun, I looked at my family chart. So I took my dad, who is he's upstairs already, and my mom
Oh,
and my brother and laid the 4 charts. So I made the midpoints. I took the midpoints of those charts and looked at that, and it's just very interesting to look at it. And like, what is the, where's the sun in the chart then? Where do we want to shine as a community? Because every family is a little community.
yes. Can you spell that word one more time for your channel as well? Synastry.
Yes. So the synastry, Synastry, synastry,
Wow.
and the other is composite,
Yes.
Composite.
Love it. And are you comfortable sharing how you used synastry, or how did it enhance or bring
Yes,
light to
yes,
the relationship?
yes. So I find it super enlightening when you take these 2 charts, whether it's even like co-workers. You can take any chart. It doesn't have to be like a romantic relationship. And you look at the 2 charts and you see, in terms of looking at Mercury, for example, in terms of communications, how we think, how we speak, how we interact. And 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 so you look, how are these 2 Mercuries aligned with each other? Do they have any alignment with each other anyway? Do they align? So that's one thing when you have a specific interest, and of course, if it's romantic, you want to look, how are the 2 Venuses getting along? So maybe the woman has a Venus in Aries, then she is a woman that says, I want this. So she will not be shy to ask for her needs. And a man with Venus in Sagittarius, for example, has an interest maybe in foreign women or in foreign partners that are like really from different countries, or they're like in higher education, or they are religious or so, all things Sagittarian. So that's what their preference in terms of love is. And then the other thing is, when you just don't ask any particular question about these 2 charts, but you hold them next to each other and you compare, where's the ascendant of chart A in relation to chart B? Where does it show up in what house? So you kind of have a communication between these charts, and that can give you tremendous insights. Where, for example, let's say Mars, we all know Mars is like forward, direct, and shouts out first and then asks question, and maybe if it's good, then he will ask question, or say like, hey, I'm sorry, I really exploded in your face. But Mars is direct and honest and impulsive. And when, let's see, and then the other Mars is also like in a fiery sign. So you have like 2 very combative Marses, and they are maybe in a square. So there, that that tells you that, okay, so there's something to work on to softening the edges.
Now, if when you build out this knowledge, it can be foreign to people who are not used to considering astrology. So if we took one step to consider astrology, for example, as you're referring to in communication and family, what's that one step that we could do?
Ooh, yes, that's a good question, because I mean, even an astrologer had to start somewhere, right? And that's what I
Right.
did also before I became like really knowledgeable about technologies and all this. So there's this one website where I always recommend people to go to. It's very easy to understand. It's astro.com, and it's easy to remember also. Astro.com. They're in Switzerland, and you can run charts there. So most of the time people, I mean, know
Wow.
at least their birthday, and with that, yeah, good, the ascendant is something you would have to have at least like a daytime to get an average ascendant. But most people, I would say, that are really interested in astrology, they know their chart, and they may know their significant other, that they put in the 2 charts. That's what I did. I was always, because I'm fascinated by this whole topic, so I was asking like, hey, when's your birthday? And try to find out what's your sign, and if
Yeah.
they were open to it, then you just figure out what the other person's sign is. And maybe I mean, once we get older and we get more mature, then we talk about these things more openly. When I was really young, I was like, I don't know, was I 20? Not even, I don't know. It was a long time ago. So you just go there and print these 2 charts out for free. It's all for free. You just put in the
Wow.
data and you look at the charts, and there you can already see are there similarities. So that's one thing that I would recommend. And you see, okay, so that is when you see the sign of, I don't know, just for an example, the sign of Taurus, right? So you look at
Mm.
Taurus, and maybe you have your sun in Taurus, and you see that the other person has something in Taurus. So you see there's already a connection. And then the other website I would also recommend is cafeastrology.com, because they give delineation. That means explanation of what does it mean if my moon is in Taurus? What does it mean if or what are the symbols in a chart? So if you have this little horseshoe, for example, it's the North node, which is super important, especially if you look at relationships and with children. Which we wanted to talk about in depth more today is, where is that child's North node? And as a parent, if you don't really are not so inclined to take astrology classes yet, so I would say these 2 websites, if this is yours anyway, you will find it highly interesting to dive into it and find out what does it mean, because it starts back to when we started with the podcast. We looked at astrology in history. People were always looking at what's happening in the sky. How does it affect us on Earth?
Yes.
That means
Yes.
our bodies, our like plant life, farming, um, people's behavior and all this, and politics, like
Yes.
what happened in the kingdom and all this. So there has been always an interest in it, and it was written down in cuneiform and later on papyrus, but it has been of interest. So the delineations, they are passed on, so they are not just invented and like, oh, let's see, I could imagine Mars means that. No, it's not. It's really going back a long ways, and in modern days you can just figure it all out for yourself and feel like, is it really also okay? My son is in Cancer, and
Mm.
then you read about Cancer. So is it really true? Am I really like smothering, or am I like really taking care of everyone in the family? Do I love cooking? Is all these things, is it really true in my life? And that is probably also making it more interesting for people to dive deeper.
And I think it's so interesting too that we're talking about this, because how many parents, especially parents of teenagers, um, like they say, I don't understand them. I don't really understand what they're all about. And so, if we just look at even just adolescence as like a focus topic for a few minutes, is it's the development of an adolescent is actually kindergarten, right? They are older, but they're almost regressing to like developmentally, because they're becoming
Mhm.
adults, right?
Yes.
They're not becoming adolescents, they're becoming adults. So you're learning, your brain is almost, it's not compromised, that's not the word I'm looking for, but it's developing new systems of understanding of what's happening around you, especially at the age of that child. But then, of course, one of some of the challenges is communication with your child during those times,
Yes. Yes.
and understanding. I mean, first and foremost, which I always say, one of the most important things an adult, whether you're a parent or not, one of the most important things is to understand what you're all about and do the work. Once you know what you're all about,
Mhm.
and how you vibe, and what your function, and how you function, and what your overall being is all about, and it is an unfoldment, but if you do that inner work for yourself, it will actually help to enhance the relationship with your child,
Yeah.
because the child will be being shown a model, but then also understanding, even from an astrological perspective, that I have a north node in this particular star sign, and I'm all about this type of communication, or this type of support that I need, or some, in terms of even wellness. This is what I need. And if I'm not getting it, then it's going to affect other people around me. But and once you understand that, then you can actually encourage and be a model for your
That's
teenager.
it. That's the key word, really, being a model. And what you said about poverty or you didn't say poverty, but you said adolescents, and I think you said teenagers, but that is so important. And as you said, so
Right.
first know yourself, but then really you have to have the will to understand the child, because what's dangerous is when the parent says, you are under my thumb because I'm your parent and I am like, oh, above you. And it's not, because oftentimes the child comes and has a message also for the parent. So it's a
They do.
collaboration. There is a reason why the child um, is born in your womb and not in somebody else's womb, and why the child has these inclinations and these traits and all this. Then so that's one thing in particular. That's when we look at the both of the charts or the composite, because the composite really says, okay, what is the relationship? The synastry is mother and child, or father and child, and the composite is the the joint, like the joint energy of the relationship. What is it about? What are we here to accomplish? The other thing you said with adolescence is that there are stages, there are milestones in a life. And of course, we start as a child and we develop. But when you said like developing, you as a child, you develop, it's exactly that. It's developing a structure, and that's Saturn. That's a 7-year interval, and we have heard about that often. So it's this, when you're born, it's more that, maybe I throw this in first, because when you're born up to 7 years old, you're more defined by your moon. The sun is
Yes.
not so important yet, because your individuality is not so strong. Your ego
So
is not as
beautiful.
strong.
So beautiful.
Even though you have like temper tantrums when you're like 3 years old, we know about that. But then this is the early stages where the parent should really, 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 really try to develop an interest in learning the sun's moon sign. The moon
Yes.
sign says so much more. If you have a moon in Capricorn, this will be a very responsible child, and they will be more serious. So poking the child and making it like, I want you to write down, why are you not silly as all the other children? Why are you not laughing that much? Why are you always so serious? That child, when it has a Capricorn moon, is just not inclined to be goofy and silly,
No.
and somebody else that has a fiery moon, like a, let's say, like a Sag moon, for example, then they are an explorer, and it will be like difficult to nail them down, and they want to be up and about. So that, and then you have, okay, so then you have the 7 years, and that's when usually, I mean, when I'm born 76, so I went to school at 6, but it's really the first year of school, so you reach 7, and that's the magic 7. It's the
Mhm.
opening square. So yeah, when you look at mm, the moon phases, everybody knows, right? We have a new moon, then we have the quarter moon, we have the full moon, and then another quarter moon, and then the new moon again. Same with other planets. So Saturn has a birth location in our chart in a zodiac degree. So at 7 years, it is the opening square. And then we have the 14 years, and that's when the individually, I would say, yes, it does kick in at age 7, but 14 is rebellion against authority. That's often when we really we question authority, and we rebel. Our skin breaks out. Skin is Saturn. We get acne. This
Mm.
is the time, 13,
Yes.
14. And then we have 21. That is what you mentioned when we get to adolescence, because we are legally responsible for our actions. If we drive
Yep.
drunk or we play on a construction site, there's always a sign,
Yep.
parents are responsible for their kids. So you get caught, then you will be responsible at that age, and that's the legal age to buy alcohol and all this. So that's when we really become adolescents. And then the next big thing, the big milestone, would be the Saturn conjunction. That is around age, it's like 29 and a half. It depends, because Saturn goes backward and forward. So it's like a retrogradation apparent retro reverse location in the zodiac. So if you look at the zodiac, and it appears from Earth as if Saturn will go retrograde every once in a while and per year.
Yes.
And it is an illusion, but this delays. So that's why I say it's not exactly 29.5 years. And sometimes it crosses over your birth point like 3 times. That means it's asking you, have you learned your lesson? Have you done your homework? And are you
Yes.
maturing, or are you still goofing around and taking it easy and playing around? Or are you really becoming serious? Because that's when the young adult is creating his or her own family. When they are done studying, maybe they create a business and they create a family. That's really around age 30 when we get serious in life. Saturn.
Yeah, exactly. And you've hit on a couple of things that are so important, is that when a child is learning, and especially if the lunar phases are actually quite fascinating to me, because if we just start there for a moment, I just jumped around, but the lunar phases are so significant because it actually informs, especially when a child is that young, that's when they're forming their attachment bonds. That's when they are, that parents are choosing everything for them, right? Where the child is living, how the child eats, the sleeping arrangements, and this is fascinating to me as well, as this is where the triangle of the ego is also formed, right? And whether the ego goes into survival mode or not, it normally does to help you to survive. But then how does that lunar phase affect the child as it moves forward? And I know I found that fascinating and so interesting. I just did a lunar phase match, where you put your birth dates in,
Uh-huh.
and then
Oh, I
you,
see. Progressed? Is it a progressed lunar phase?
yeah, something like that. And then you can see, like, oh, like you totally eclipse each other, or you actually,
I see.
your lunar phases actually come together as one moon,
I
right?
see, with the other
It's
person.
really fascinating,
Yes, yes.
really interesting too, because the moon is such a powerful indicator of not only, I mean, to me, just how your life is going to turn out, what time you were born, even. Like, I was born at midnight, and under a full moon.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's why you're doing this work. This is like really okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so pretty much it's really interesting to me, and the lunar phases, but then also, how does that help parents? Well, if you just start to connect the dots about your child, instead of looking at them in terms of from your mask, you
Mm.
can look at them and remember them as an authentic being that came to you and chose you for a reason. I
Yes.
always say to my son, I'm like, thank God you chose me, because he's actually quite a kindred spirit. Like, he's almost like a mini version of me. Um,
Yeah, you said
he
he is
says,
a Virgo also, right?
he's a
Mhm.
Virgo. He's one day apart from my birthday. And, he says to me today, Mommy, you're kind of like my homie. You're like my homie. You understand me. I'm like, yes, I do. And he's a typical Virgo, typical, like almost to a T. So I'm like, yes, I know exactly what you need. But then if I don't, what I do understand, and how that informs my communication with him, is that I understand that and observe him if he's tired. Virgos need a lot of sleep. We need to be fed quite a bit. We need, like, balance, we need equilibrium. But then also understanding how to communicate when things are not going well. How does
Yeah,
that?
that's the art. That's really where the rubber meets the road. And then the
Yes.
first important, very important step is like wanting, like what you said, like, okay, I know that I thank him to have chosen me. So the parent has to like really be willing to accept the child as not only a dependent or a property. That's the important key factor. If you see this is there's a reason why this child is born, and wanting to set the child on his or her own feet and accepting them as a being. and supporting them
Yes.
with their needs. Exactly.
And that means understanding the being, right? At an
Mhm.
astrological level, lunar could be understanding from a numerological, doing
And yes, on
numerology.
top of it.
And on top of that, just understanding what they're and observing what they're all about.
Mhm.
Look, parents are very busy these days. People are, even one child can be a lot for a family. Some bigger families, it's a lot,
Mm.
especially with how society has been set up. But the one thing
Yeah.
I think that is so key is that if you use these components of astrology, numerology, integrating astrological integration, life path numbers, all of these components can help you
Yeah.
connect some dots to your child so that you can parent better. And
Exactly. And I think this is definitely,
look,
you're hitting a big point there. Because, I mean, when you look, I mean, I worked with autistic kids back in
yes,
Walnut Creek. And it's so easy to declare them autistic because, I mean, they're very special. And often when
they
they're
are
not understood, that's how they withdraw. I cannot trust. And there's so much intelligence in them. And we have a
so
lot of,
much.
now we look a lot at seed children, indigo children, and what are the other crystal children. So wanting, listening to them, because especially going back to these first 7 years, when the moon is so dominant, the dream life also, and the like seeing fairies and seeing things and talking about the dreams, and then the parent says, oh, you're fantasizing and all this. That is deafening this whole intuition, because moon is all about this psychic sponge, and it takes in, and it's super connected also. It's all about the collective, the field. And if you deafen that, and you have to function and think logical and all this, that is something where definitely it's important for the parent to pay attention to, and not deafen that and put a lid on. And yeah, with the authentic, I wanted to say something and it escapes me right now. So hopefully it comes back, because oh yes, because when you said, hey, there is so much that you can use as a parent, exactly. And if you train yourself, it doesn't even cost you, but you may just reach out to someone, get a reading from not tarot, but maybe numerology reading or astrology reading, and that saves the hassle going to a doctor and prescribing pills, because my child is hyperactive or so. Maybe he's like very Aries. There's, like he has a moon in Aries or so. So, that is because they are not normal. They're not like my neighbor's kid. They're not my cousin's kids. And then you compare and compartmentalize.
Yes. And you can't, like, look, we were all kids. You can't compare one kid to another. That is like a very it's not a mistake, but we all have purpose on this earth, and depending on where you are born, what time, and lunar integration, astrological integration, all of this comprises the fabric of the authenticity of the being. Now, the one thing that I think would cloud this is parental fear, and all parents have fears,
Mm,
right?
mm,
I think sometimes my son I know he's an empath and he can sense where I'm feeling uneasy. He says, Mom, I know what to do. This is the biggest thing he
oh,
says in
that's
the last,
fantastic. Yes.
I know what to do. I'm like, do you know what to do? Do you? He says,
Mm,
yes, I know what to do. I know, Mom, I don't go and leave this, and I don't go with a stranger. And so I go through all this. But I think parental fear is um something that's been developed because you don't know.
mm,
You don't know how hard is it being a parent or an aunt or a grandparent. You don't always know. Sometimes you're muddling through, and it's almost like you're taking stabs in the dark. But once you can open up a little bit of knowledge surrounding your child, it softens the journey
oh my God, this
very
is so
much.
good. Yes, this is so good. I wish every parent would think like that. It is making it so
But
easy. Put the
it's
cards
the
on the
truth,
table.
yeah.
Oh, yes. Exactly, be open, because that's the mother-child bond. The moon is all about mothering. It's all about the nourishing the child and all this. And of course, there is an
Yes.
instinctual fear with it, of course. And that is so important. Just really open play, open, like be open, communicate with the child. And as you say, like sit them down, because what happens in the world right now, with what's really coming out in news and all this, we have to really be watchful with the children. I was lucky I could just play in the fields and be out until the
Right.
dusk or
Yes.
whatever, but it's not so easy anymore these days. We're in we get probably there again. But right now it's a little difficult. We have to be mindful, and if we explain to them exactly the fears that are out there, and what you say also with the like being an empath, if you know this, then you can really, if you just know it and you see how much like is there in water, you look at the chart and there's like, I don't know, 5 or more planets in water signs, then you know that child is very empathic. And that when you're very empathic, then you have to develop strong boundaries, healthy boundaries, and telling them
Yes.
also like don't be too trustful. And also then also like there are challenging aspects in the chart. If you look at the only the birth chart of the child, for example, if you see like Neptune, oh, that is what I wanted to also throw in. Speaking of empath, when a child is an empath and they are not really informed about what does it mean to be an empath, and then they say like, oh, something is wrong with me, because the parents say like, oh, it's only a movie, why are you crying? And the
Yes.
child thinks it does something wrong, but it is only
Yes.
overly empathic, which can be an excellent tool for client work later on when they're an adult. It's just they
Right.
have to harness and channel it. So because when you don't do it, they could end up in drugs and alcohol, because that's the other side of this totally empathic Piscean Neptunian personality. So you have to like really understand what are the dangers and how can you support really getting the best out of this human being that you
And
are honored to be.
it's you see some of these gray hairs coming in. That's because I had empath discussions with my son in the last like school year. Like really because uh, uh, um, being a sensitive being myself, I remember I would sing nursery rhyme. I'm not a great singer, but I tried. But I would sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star to him, and he literally looked at me and went like this.
Like hypnosis.
No, I don't like this song, mommy. I don't like it. And I said, are you sure? Because I loved it. I love Twinkle Twinkle. It's like, and I would show him
Yeah.
Twinkle. I think this is a very sad song, mommy.
Wow.
Yeah. So I stopped
Interesting.
singing it and I
Mhm.
switched to Wheels on the Bus, go round and round. But
Mhm.
like you just mm, soften your parenting around that, because once you know how your child ticks, your parenting adjusts as
Right.
well. Like I'm
That-
not a perfect parent. Like I yell, okay? I'm not perfect. But I know how my yelling affects me, my little guy. He hates it, right? No one likes to yell. I mean, it hurts me more than it hurts him. I always apologize. But I always say to him, I said, it's not really about you. It's just that we're not communicating well.
Right.
Um, but see
That's
that, the idea of softening your parenting and informing your parenting journey will automatically move with your child if you know them at a very
right.
foundational level, right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. That's growing together. And then plus, if you now add these like planetary cycles that we talked about, like
Yeah.
there's I noted a couple of us, hopefully they're useful for people. So there's Saturn, we know, in the 7-year increments. Then we have Jupiter also. Jupiter is like the benefic, but it takes 12 years for Jupiter to come back to the original birth location. And then another planet is Uranus, and Uranus has 84 years to come around to your birthday. So
Oh,
that's a long
wow.
time. But then you know about the so-called midlife crisis that is at the halfway point. So around 42, again, planets go back like retrograde, and then you can never nail it down. It's always for everyone except 42 years. No, that doesn't work. So, and then you have Chiron, and we shouldn't forget about Chiron. It's a
Yes.
very young planet. We discovered it only in 77, but still
Yeah.
it is definitely having an impact. And I, in my own life, I thought, oh, Chiron returned. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to experience what it would look like. And then it came, and I wished, oh, it had never come. I lost my dad, so it was
Oh,
painful. My dad died at that time, and so it was not a cheerful experience for me. So it's really wounds that we learn to work on. Then, so those are the cycles. They have their increments. Chiron is 50-year cycle. So now, if you look at, you line them all up and you see where do they overlap. So we have, for example, age 24, 25, that's a Jupiter return and Chiron opposition. So you have two factors, Jupiter expansion. But here we have to be mindful, because everybody goes like, ah, Jupiter, the benefic and all this. But maybe Jupiter in someone's personal horoscope can be more challenging. They are
yes.
invited to learn to not be too preachy, not to be too braggy. This is the shadow side of Jupiter. So we have to first understand how does our own Jupiter function, and then it's really about, it's like a click point, bum bum bum, click. Okay, so now it's time to really work on this skill. It's always life presents us with skills, and if we realize there is like a clockwork, like cranks that fall into each other, and then that's the point when tasks are usually presented to us. For example, the 42 years it's a Saturn opposition and Uranus opposition. So we have Saturn, the schoolmaster, have you done your homework? And then Uranus, I break out of the shell. I'm done. I want to move. I need to change and make a change. I have to like really explode. It's volcanoes, it's explosions. Uranus is standing for like high electricity, high voltage electricity. So that's when we really decide, am I happy in my life, with my marriage, where I live, my work? And a lot of times there are breakups at 42ish. That's the so-called midlife crisis. And so we have several. So 24, 25 is an overlap. 35, 36 is another age overlap when we have a Jupiter return again and a Saturn opposition, a square. So, and then 42, as I said, and then we have around 50 with the Chiron return. We have also a Jupiter return same time. So they're definitely, it's interesting to just see the cycles and how they meet, and they ask the person to make adjustments and deal with unresolved things, because we all come with baggage and a little checklist that is our North Node that tells us, okay, this is your checklist. Remember, the house is your life area, and then the sign is like how you want to go about your life task. So that will also help with the like raising the child, because when it's the child is healthy and has a healthy self-esteem, self-worth, then the child will not have to do so much repair later on down the road.
Right, right. And it takes work, like parenting or just being human these days, it's hard work, right? You have demands on your time, you have demands on your mental well-being, physical, spiritual, metaphysical. And if you just take some time to just get to know different aspects of yourself, I always joke about this metaphor where people need to go and sit on top of a mountain and meditate for 48 days, right? And say, okay, now I found myself. It doesn't work like that,
No,
right? It
it's an
doesn't work
ongoing
like
thing,
that.
I would rather
It's a
say.
nice, you can't, and parents certainly cannot do that. You might escape for 2 days here and there, but parents can't do that. But it's a real commitment as a parent if you can understand the the comings and goings energetically of your child,
Yeah.
what lights their fire, what doesn't. And
Yes.
instead of forcing them to be something that they are not.
Right.
I understand there's also societal and cultural conditionings, you know, in certain societies, like you have to be a doctor, dentist, lawyer. That's it. I get it. Okay, I get it. And I know there are the reasons, but the main thing is that if you really understood and understood how to nurture the child and allow them to unfold in the way, but with gentler guidance instead of standing over
Right.
them,
Because
you know,
exactly that's only
like you
raising a
said,
wall.
right? You said like we can't look at kids like this. They are not beneath
Top
us
down.
just
Yes.
because they're younger. The
Mm.
kids are essentially wiser because they've picked us as parents,
That's what I always say
and
also.
they're
Yeah,
here to teach us. They're
right.
here to teach
And
us.
even, I mean, even in non-parent settings, because as I said, I'm teaching 2 days a week in a school, and right now I'm with very little children, so as young as like
Oh,
3, 4. It's very close.
oh,
But you see that, I mean, we are definitely responsible at a level, whether I'm the parent or not, but I have a responsibility in terms also to build the self-esteem in the child, but also to build group thinking, because we're in class, and now we cannot run around, and now we cannot eating is at certain times, and playing and recess is at certain times, so we all are together, and we all have to take turns and listen to everybody has a say, so it has to be just like a community spirit you have
yes,
to create, so you have to find a balance there. And but it's definitely the responsibility as a parent to let go also, because that's the pitfall of the parent. The parent has to be honest enough to see, like, what kind of a parent am I? Am I like I don't want you to move away for college, I will miss you. But it's really, on the other hand, you should say, like, I'm proud, and yeah, you can do it, and we can be still on the phone, and you come to visit and all this. But it's really wanting the kid. I'm thankful for my dad. He really said, like, go kiddo, look at the world, and
oh,
he really
love.
supported that. And my mom had a hard time. She has, I think, she has the moon in Scorpio, like I do. I can be also a
Oh,
little
oh
attached.
boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
then, but I'm definitely, I have a lot of stuff going in my ninth house. So I'm an explorer. My dad said, like, yes, go look at the world and take opportunity of the moment of this. Like, there was, like, in terms of work, something coming up. And my mom had a hard time with that. So really, it's hard to say, like, hey, parent, don't have a hard time with your kid leaving to college. It's just finding ways, because we shouldn't condemn people that are so, like, really soft-hearted. But it's the fact of clinging, because clinging always implies a possessiveness.
Yes.
Because if you leave
And
me
it's,
now, I will be mad, or I will be sad, I will
yes.
suffer.
And you hit on something so important, that you picked your mom and dad as parents, and you said something even more beautiful. My mom was moon in Scorpio, and oh wow, and so am I. So how beautiful is that you can actually create compassion through astrology in that way, so that you
Yes.
understand,
Oh my God. I
you
cannot
know,
tell you what a lifesaver that was when I started. And I think when it was really, 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 really kicking in was when my boyfriend at that time, when I got access to his library, and I went, like, wow, this is, like, amazing. And how can I expect him to be different? Of course, we had fights, and so you understand the other, and there's the compassion, and it is creating so much peace. And of course, parent-children basis, same there. It's just such it takes this aggression out, and the fighting spirit and the ego, because you see it's a natural way of expression. Am I
right.
okay?
And then ego, and we know that common knowledge that ego is based around fear. So
Mhm.
once you're building your parenting around fear, the child is going to react. They are more
Mhm.
intelligent than you, in
Yes.
you meaning the collective you, and they are going to test. They are going to test
Mm.
everything
Oh yes. Oh yes.
that
Yes.
you're
Yes. Yes.
doing, and that what you're
Mhm.
saying, and how if it and kids are very intelligent in terms of, I know especially my one, he, even if I shift my tone of voice,
Mhm.
give him the death stare, I don't say much in that way, I just shift those two things, he's like, do you need a nap?
How cute. This is
are
so
you
cute.
are you angry?
Yeah.
Are you is there, what does he, and I said, I thank you for noticing, it's nothing to do with you. I don't need a nap, but I am angry. Just that building
Mhm.
awareness,
What a
so that
beautiful, beautiful relationship that
just
is.
just to understand,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And again, like I said, every parent is different, every child is different.
Mhm.
And but building a foundation of trust,
Yeah.
authenticity,
Oh,
um,
yeah, 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 yeah. This is like
communication.
really, you're hitting a nail again. And if you
Yeah.
just look at the last 4 years, I mean, these ch children, they were so traumatized, and even
Yes.
the lack of oxygen with like covering up and all this is doing
Yes.
something to your brain. And
Yes.
I had a talk with a fellow teacher the other day, and she sees that really that the kids are they're fearful of people's expressions because they have been robbed of
Oh,
facial expressions for so long that this instinct is kind of like thwarted. It
yes.
has to be rebuilt.
It has to be rebuilt. And society needs this,
Mhm.
because whether or not we are virtual or in person,
Mm.
looking at
Ah,
somebody's
yes,
face
yes,
is one of the most beautiful things you can do to connect with
right.
them, whether it's in person or not.
Yes.
To
Yes.
understand facial cues,
Mm.
to understand energetic cues behind, especially if
Yeah.
you're in person, energetic cues behind the facial expressions. Because once you look, society is so fast, okay, with tech and this and that,
Mhm.
people working, podcasting, whatever people are doing, and it's not going to slow down.
Probably not so, no.
Unless it's Mercury retrograde, then maybe that'll give us some
Yeah.
kind of downtime. But you have this capacity to slow your parenting down
That's a
by
good point. Oh, this is brilliant. Also, like, yeah, really slowing down and not living the
right?
fast lane. I know consciously exiting this rat race and finding
Yeah.
little islands of peace and play. So
Yes.
important for the parent
Right.
also.
For the parent too, because if you're working on an empty cup and your foundation is just, but if you have the foundation, you've built it
Mhm.
surrounding your child, you can
Yeah,
still refer to it when you're feeling tired, right? It's so important.
it is
You
so
can
true.
still
And it's so important. I mean, what all these things, what you just said is so important because we feed the field back with how we feel. If we're stressed out and
yes,
we are hissing at the child because we're in pain ourselves, then of
yes,
course it makes it worse. And it
yes,
even affects our neighborhood, it affects our community, and it's a ripple effect. And that's the danger. And also with the like expressions when you said about the facial expressions, how important they are. If you look even at like fake videos and all this authenticity that we have as human beings is like really our facial expressions.
yeah,
Um, Kids, I think, have a real good antenna because they're still pure raw and they don't
yes,
have the intention to create fake videos to make you believe something different or so, or
yes,
create fear in you. Kids won't,
Yes.
they don't want to do it. I never forget when my brother and I, we were kids, and my mom loved shopping, and we were so bored. We had to tag along with her, and she was looking in the clothes stands and all this. And one time we decided, come on, let's hide in the clothes stand, and she freaked out. And
Oh,
it was bad. It was so bad. Just imagine a mom and both kids gone in a like a fashion store somewhere. And then she had like the sales personnel, and then they found us. Of course, they saw our feet sticking out from the bottom or so.
oh,
But imagine, but we didn't have intention. Like we pay her back because she did this to us or so. She didn't allow us A, B, or C, and it was just like playing a trick. But this is not from a bad heart in a way. It's just a silly joke that was not good, really. I think, but
yeah.
it's
I
definitely.
did the same thing, by the way. It's actually kind
Oh,
of funny.
how funny. This is so funny.
And
Another
she
thing we
didn't
have in common.
realize, and she just walked away in the store, and I just went zoop
Yeah.
inside the coats. It was coats.
Yes.
And then I heard, and then I was like, oh, well, you do these things, and then there's yes, I was lost. Okay, I was probably like 7 years old, 6 or 7, but I ended up sitting on a counter eating ice cream, and then they had to put my name up on the
Ah,
loudspeaker.
yeah.
I did it. I did it. I'm guilty. I did it. But it's
Yes.
fun to play inside there. I don't know. It's like a different world.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like a harmless joke. That's why I call it like that.
I know, but I
Yeah.
understand that. And I think you, as a parent, it's building a foundation around the knowledge for your child is not going to go against your relationship with your child. It's going to inform the way you speak with them. It's
Mm,
going to inform the way you affirm them, the way you discipline them. Um,
yes. Uh-huh.
like sometimes I remember I what happened? My son, I think he ran over my foot or something. Like he did it on, I knew he did on purpose. He was mad with me, but he was very young.
Mm.
And I just yelled. And he still remembers that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He still
Yeah, I
remembers
think,
that.
yep, uh-huh. I think that is, I wonder, I'm trying to, of course, the astrologer brain is going like, what can I tie it to? Is there something I can tie it to, maybe to some constellation or so, or some like setting in a birth chart? Because, for example, Mercury is the mind, right? And if it's like related to Cancer, that is retaining memory. So maybe a child that has a predominant Mercury in Cancer or Mercury conjunct Moon or so, that they remember more likely things that are so far in the past. Who knows? But it's
Yes.
worth studying all this.
But and that when you're, for example, if you're building a lasagna, right? You have all these ingredients, all these multitude of ingredients. You might have the cheese, you might have the pasta, you have meat, or maybe not, maybe it's vegetables, sauce, spices. That builds the foundation of a nice, and then you have the lasagna noodles. You have the foundation that's built to make a really beautiful meal. I don't look at parenting um, any different than that. You can always add a little bit something in through knowledge about your child, trying new things with your child, and building a foundation for them, so that you have a beautiful, delicious component of parenting always readily available to you. So you have the basic ingredients of a lasagna. That's your foundation.
Hmm.
And so with parenting too, you can build that
Yeah.
foundation with astrology, like we've talked about, numerology, life path, whatever, however you want to
Hmm.
build it, and communication. But you can always add little things here and there in order to enhance the
Right.
lasagna,
If you
right?
see need, absolutely, exactly. If there's need, then you know what you have to add, and just to make it, to round it up and make it more
Yes.
perfect and make it more harmonious. Because I mean, everybody seeks harmony, right? In any relationship.
Yes.
That's what we
How
innate.
beautiful.
we don't want to like pick a fight or so. Maybe there are people that are really, they really like, if it's like too calm, they look around, where can I poke someone or so, where can I fight?
Yes,
And
I
they
know
like to
what
discuss. But it's good when we take this tendency or that inclination out on a squash field, or on a like an we play athletic, we play it out athletically or so. That's yeah, that's another thing. If you have like a really child that has temper tantrums, sign them up for something like this, like really getting the steam out.
Yes, um, and I'll use my example again. I, being a new mother and a new parent, and a late mother, so became a mother at the age of 40. My child was crying, and I didn't understand why he was crying, and I sat him down in front of me and I looked him in the eye. I spoke to him in English at that time, and I said, "Look, I don't understand why you're crying." I said, are you hungry? Are you tired? Are you sleepy? Mommy needs to hear your words. And he's watching me. He stopped crying. He's
Mhm.
watching me. And I said, if you can tell me with words, then I can help be a better mother to you. I kid you not, the next day that child started talking.
Wow. Uh-huh.
I kid you not, he started talking, and I gave him
Yeah, yeah.
baby signs, just like for
Like,
milk,
uh-huh.
um, for more. What was more again? I forget all the signs,
Uh-huh.
but just to give him that sense of communication, because and since then he's been like the best communicator. I tell him that he sounds like CNN. He has all this information coming.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Yes,
that
but
is so
then,
beautiful. But because I
right?
mean, generally deep down, I mean, Virgo, it likes to communicate. It's all about Mercury.
Yeah,
Mercury is the sign ruler.
yes, yes. And so, softening those things, like, if parenting is hard, soften your approach, right?
Mhm.
Soften it. You can't
And
be
yes,
all,
that's a good point too, because it soften your approach, or do something to your approach. Because when you see A
yes,
is not working, then it is necessary to develop like a curiosity. What else could there be? Like you're
yes,
coming up with an communication system there that is so beautiful, because it's
yes,
really our intent, and it's more even these days. Back in the 50s, it was all, the life was slower, things were more harmless, I would call. We were not
sure,
so programmed yet by distractions and all this. And I think that parent-child, the family dynamics were healthier, stronger. Family was more important. And so now it's like having reached the bottom, and now it's really important to realize these intuition, all these things, like the things that you cannot necessarily put a finger on, like telepathically, like thinking in like impulses, like, oh, I should call maybe, and I feel that my child or my mom is kind of like feeling anxious or so, I don't know. And just as an example, that we have these things coming up again, because we cannot trust the outside anymore. We cannot trust our the ones that are supposedly in charge of us, whether it's healthcare system or so. So
sure.
we have to really take responsibility of our own lives again, and
Yes,
with each other, with the people that matter to us.
yes. And what better ways to soften communication? Communication is, I think, the one of the most underrated
Mm.
um, skill sets, not only uh, in relationships, but in families, because everybody's, we're
Yeah.
all plugged
Oh
in,
my
right?
God. Yes, yes,
It's
yes.
not,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a conscious choice, but sometimes I just put it away, and then that's it. I'm
Yes.
not
Yeah.
answering anything. So, because then I'm also modeling it as well. So that,
Same. That is very true. That's true. That's the other thing of a parent. We have to be mindful, like, crossing the red light or so, and then
yeah.
expecting your kid to do differently. Like, what is that saying? Like teaching water and drinking the wine or so. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's so funny.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Telling
yeah.
them one thing, but doing another. Yes. And I
Mm,
know it's not an easy thing. And then, if we switch, over a little bit, we've been kind of talking more about the parenting. You know, how do we teach kids to be more informed about who they are and what they're all about, especially when it comes to astrology. You know, that's why I want to write a book with you. Maya,
Yes.
really sweet. I want to write
Yes,
I want
I
a book
think if
like just to help you, to help kids
yeah, I
to
think that they
understand
have
that.
a natural curiosity about it because also about
Yeah,
finding out about themselves. And I think especially
yeah,
at that age, 6, 7 or
yeah.
so, to find out
So
about
good.
themselves. I do this in class sometimes
Yeah,
when we
so
talk
good.
about like the days of the week because they're related to planets and all this, and they
Yes,
find it
so
interesting.
beautiful.
Mhm.
So
And
beautiful.
that is, I think, the more we let kids off the hook and let them choose, they're at least out of school. And in school, of course, they have to learn the alphabet and writing and all this. That's clear. But when, like in the pastime, if we just instead of plastic toys made in China, maybe give them a book that is like
Yes,
for kids' age. We're working on it, Roshni.
we're
We're
working.
waiting
We're
on
doing
that.
it. We'll work on it before this lifetime. This is gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, it has to be accessible. And actually I have started working on one with
Perfect.
the co-worker at that school, even when
So beautiful.
it's
I love
still
it.
it has been sitting there. I'm ashamed. We have to like also pick it up again.
Oh,
So
you'll finish it. If you've already started it, it'll be finished.
I
As long as
think
you
it
just
has
have to
to. It
start.
has, yes, it has to because the seed is planted and it has to just be
Yeah,
brought to fruition.
exactly. Exactly.
That is so important. But I think, yeah,
Yeah.
if we make it like support the curiosity to children about
Yes. Yes.
and not telling them like especially when people are very Christian or so, they are afraid of it for reasons that they don't even know. It's only cycles basically,
Yes.
and
It
it's
is
not.
cycles.
Mm,
And it just informs uh you just in a general sense one's humanity. You don't have to use it, but and we've talked about this throughout our series so far, it's just another tool
right.
that can
Uh-huh.
help and to build um compassionate understanding about somebody's personality.
Yeah.
For example, if you're a Virgo and you're with a Sag,
Mm,
what does that what that might generally look like, and
yeah.
how do you need to
Exactly.
show
I
up?
wish it would be coming back to schools. It was taught at universities in the old days in the
Yes, it was.
behavioral
Yeah.
and those. So it's just this wrong perception of it because as we said earlier also it's the power that it is. And you can use it, of course, you can use everything for good or ill. So that's definitely if it's used responsibly and not to manipulate others that are maybe
No.
naive or so, that's of course
Yes.
backfiring. And I think it will, everything that we use in a manipulative way will always backfire to us. So that's
Yes.
definitely something. So schools and encouraging kids to be curious about it by themselves. But
Sure.
I think also that in terms of counseling, and you are a healer and counselor yourself, and you are using these principles, and you see how helpful it is to understand the other. So if maybe a teenager comes to you and they are in a crisis, like an identity crisis, that's the 13, 14 years of the opening square of Saturn, then if you know that, you can just ease them and say like, hey, you know what? Do you know how many other people at that age have it? And it is because of that. It's a natural cycle. So don't you take it personal. You are not wrong.
Yeah, you are not. Yes. How beautiful is that? And understanding these cycles as well, how it affects moods and
Mhm.
communications,
Right,
projects. We've talked about, in leadership, how
right.
come when you're approaching on a project and if this is a good time to launch,
Mhm.
that doesn't, what that means is you're going to be shaking up a system that's based on capitalism, and you're going to shake it up because you're moving with cycles. And I've met a few business owners who move with cycles, and they are a joy to talk
Oh,
to
great.
because they're like, No, it's winter solstice, and
Yeah,
things are
yeah.
quietening down, and
Uh,
people are talking like that. And
this
can
is so
you
cool. I love to hear
imagine?
that. And no staff meetings on a void, of course, moon, when the moon is not making any contacts as it is exiting the sign. That's, I mean,
Yes,
we would just find more harmony to say it. It's just easy little steps, and it may be like, oh my God, I will never be able to learn this. Just, I would say to people, take your time, and just, you don't have to know everything about astrology, just the things that you need for your task at hand right now and your
yes.
relationship. If like teenagers, if you have a serious boyfriend that you're really liking, then maybe just find out what sign he is, or
Yes. And look and use what you need and feel comfortable with. That doesn't
exactly.
mean you're gonna, I mean, it depends on your passions, right?
Mhm.
Astrology is our passion here together. But if you
Mhm.
don't have the time to study astrology from the beginning of time until now, then pick and choose different tools that you can mix into
Right.
your day that can enhance
Yeah.
what's around you. I read the astrology in my newspaper every day. Um, and I just look at it. If it resonates with you, if it
Mm.
creates some sort of energetic connection
Yeah.
to you, then it might be for you. If it
That's
doesn't, then just
that's
take it
another
with a
thing,
grain of salt,
exactly. Does it
right?
resonate or not? Okay, for example, Gemini never resonates with me. It's always Scorpio, because that's my ascendant, my moon. And
Wow.
my sun is in Scorpio's house, in the eighth house. So I read always Scorpio horoscopes, if at all, like somewhere. Yeah,
Wow. I didn't know that.
yeah,
Oh,
that's,
I
I
knew
find,
about the Scorpio, but that's beautiful that the Scorpio was actually resonating with you. You
yeah,
see?
totally, the depth and like finding out and like doing research and all this. So it's definitely intensity and all this. I can
It
totally
is.
relate to that.
Oh, how beautiful is that?
Mm.
And even it gives you, and I'll even push further that if you're having a bad day and you have, a certain,
Yes,
your moods are going to be informed by where your houses are and where your north node is, and
moon
with
is also,
depending
yes.
on your cycle. So how
Mhm.
are you going to find space and grace for that for yourself
Yes,
and be awareness? It's just
for
building awareness.
yourself and also for everyone, because the moon as it is right now, today we have a moon in Taurus, and it's
Yes,
exalted. So it's a nice moon. It's all like really providing and nourishing or like supportive
yes.
and very nice, and listening to
So
the other,
beautiful.
and helping
Yes.
the other and all this. So that's really good. But then sometimes we have a Gemini moon, and it's everybody's like chat,
Yep.
chat, chat. And then you have lots of emails or whatever correspondence.
Yes.
But that's
Yes.
it. If you, I would, that's something that we probably would recommend to people. Just play with it and find out for
You
themselves.
said
And
it. You said it. Just play.
yeah,
That's why we're
like play.
here,
Mhm.
That's why we're here. We're not scripted to just walk like this. If you open the door a little bit on this side, a little bit on
Mm,
this side, you're not only increasing your knowledge,
mm,
but you're there to play. This is what energy workers also do. You play
exactly.
with the energy
It is.
of the tools that you're using. We're
Yeah.
here to play, and astrology is a beautiful way to play. It's
Yeah.
such a it it if we and it's practical, it's informative, it can build a foundation to particular projects, partnerships. Astrology can inform your parenting style. It has so many implications when you look at it from just a wide perspective, and then also looking at it as how it affects, the lunar phases. So again, another beautiful
Yes.
way to look at somebody's
Right. Right.
personality and where they're at. And I,
I
I just, I
I
think
think
I
that's
just
what
love
we're
that.
start next time, next episode, we are next month, we are diving into the feminine part, right? So that's where we look again at the lunar phases, because that's an important factor also.
Yes, I love that. See, your
Yeah.
eyes are already lit up. So there.
Yes, it's a really, I cannot hide this in with astrology. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, to round it off, so I looked at you had that conference already that was early in March, right? That conference is already done.
Yes, yes.
And what else do you have coming up then now? The podcast.
So I've been working on another conference.
Oh,
That'll be
cool.
more in the summer. I haven't
Coming up.
really committed to it yet, but then again, podcasting with like-minded souls, raising
Yes,
the consciousness, sharing knowledge, bringing that energy together. I just love that. And so
yes.
I always am honored to meet with you and create with you, because it's always, like I've always said and appreciated, it's soul food.
That
And
is, yeah,
so
that's the
doing
key word, exactly, the soul
podcasting,
food. I totally say
yes,
the same with you. Yes.
yeah.
So when you have that, the podcast, whatever I can put under the video, under the recording, I will put that on the YouTube channel so people can access it. I will put your calendar again for
Oh,
booking
sure.
sessions, because so
Yes.
everybody who's listening, don't forget, Roshni is a Reiki master and
Yes.
healer, also still Filer healing. You see that in the background. So I will put that link up also, and then the podcast, and then if you have
Thank
something
you.
coming up with the conference that's coming up, we can put the link, if it's available already, we can put it out in the link
Absolutely.
also.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
and
What do you have coming up? Are you
yeah,
doing any
for my part,
retreats?
I still have these 2 retreats. They're coming up in the second part of August. They're 2 back-to-back retreats. One is for couples, for creating
Beautiful.
mindful communications and like healing and bonding, tightening bond. And the other is coming back into joy. So for people who had suffered some losses or disappointments in life, really finding back your joy and maintaining it. And then I have this brand new tour to my home turf, to North Germany. So it's an
Wow.
eco-cultural tour. And then I'm still in this our investment group. So it's about creating abundance. So people who want to know more about that can contact me also.
Oh, I love that. Well, I wish you the best with everything there, because I know that adventuresome spirit is always being honored on your end. I always like to watch what you're
Yeah,
doing,
it's
especially
all
on the
about like
retreats.
when we work with like-minded, you
Yeah,
feel really
yeah, yeah.
fulfilled.
But thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Roshni.
hosting today.
It was great and nutritious as always.
Great and nutritious. We love it.
Yes, nutrition for the mind, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Big hug. See you next
Take
month.
care. Thank you.
All
Thank you.
righty.
Stay
Bye bye.
blessed.